The Penguins had the win of their season on Friday against the Washington Capitals. And on this edition of Marshall Monday, Jesse's going to help me break down that game, plus get you all set for Penguin Stars. That's all coming up right after this.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes. You can follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Normally, my co-host Patrick Damp will be here, and you can follow him on Twitter at Center for Wet, but he is still very much getting drunk in Mexico at this wedding. He'll be back for tomorrow's show and for the rest of the week and for the rest of the year, if we're being honest. You can follow him again on Twitter at Center for Wet. And joined, as always, today for Marshall Monday, he's back after a scheduling conflict last week, is Jesse Marshall. You can follow him on Twitter at JMarshFOF. Jesse, really great to have you back, and I'm glad that we can keep doing this, man.
Yeah, absolutely. How many drinks do you think it takes someone of Pat's size to get drunk?
I'm going to go actually a half drink because
I was going to say,
how
pina
short
colada,
he is,
you get like a 50%er on there. I mean, he might be stumbling around. Let's hope he
knowing
comes
how
back.
short he is, he's 5'4". I think he probably gets drunk off not even one drink, to be honest.
Yeah. Hopefully he doesn't, get drunk and wander off the resort and get lost and kidnapped or something like that. Would be terrible. I don't want that to happen, but be careful out there, Pat, if you're listening to this.
Yes, God forbid, Pat. We don't want anything to happen to you. But getting a couple more things out of the way. Of course, thank you all so much for taking the time to listen to / watch the show. And of course, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Down the Game Time app, create an account and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. So, Jesse, Penguins get the win of their season on Friday against the Washington Capitals. They had a great start in the first period. Erik Karlsson gets the scoring started, and then he makes a pass that I think only 5 other defensemen in the league can make to Michael Bunting, who makes it 2-0. And it's just, I want the consistency to be there for this player. It's been so Jekyll and Hyde this year, so up and down. You see the plays that he can make with a puck on his stick that makes him such a special player. But then there's other instances where it's like, man, what was that? Because you weren't that bad last year at times. I just want to keep seeing more consistency with Karlsson. I thought that was a great game from him, and just seeing the way the Penguins also defended that lead in the third period and just the way they played in the third period as well. They didn't allow Washington to have a shot for virtually half of that period. Evgeny Malkin gets the goal, and they played mostly pretty good defense after that. Joel Blomqvist had to make a couple of really good timely saves in that third, but I was left wondering after that third period, after they got this win, where in the heck has that type of third period been all year? Were you having the same sort of question in your mind?
No, and I'll be the Debbie Downer because I just think the Capitals stunk. I've watched a lot of Washington this year. I think that they're an interesting story given in how they've pivoted their franchise into being like competitive. I think there's some level of smoke and mirrors to their performance early in the season. I don't think they're as good as their record is right now. But I think that is also like probably arguably the worst performance Washington's had all season. Like top to bottom. It just wasn't their night. And I don't want to discredit the Penguins because they didn't blow it, right? And like the bar is so low, Hunter, that blowing it is the bar, right? Like that's it. Like don't blow it. They didn't blow it. So you can't be too critical of them, right? And they got I thought even the beginning of the game, there was a lot of a feeling out process, I thought early, like a lot of chance trading off and on. Two teams, I think, trying to navigate the neutral zone. But I think as it wore out, I thought the Penguins became the better team and probably should have won that game. But I also think that's probably not the best showing that we'll get from the Capitals this year. I do think the important note I want to make here is that Michael Bunting scored again.
Yeah.
So that's huge, right? Because like complete milk carton to start the season. Just no idea where he was offensively and defensively. I thought he was bad in both zones. And I think that's finding its level a little bit. Yeah, man, your Erik Karlsson comment, I said this on Twitter. What's wrong with him? Right? Like, I don't know. Friday night, because Friday night was so bad, right? You get this like two ends of the spectrum on back-to-back games. Friday night, abysmal. Saturday night, doing things that, as you said, like maybe there's a handful of defensemen in the league that can do. But I just, to me, and maybe this is just my eye test being biased. He doesn't look as fast. right? I think there's a burst missing from his game. And I think you especially notice that, Hunter, when he's transitioning back to play defense. That's where he's seemingly getting cooked, right? Is it like right at the blue line, not deep in his own zone, right at the blue line. So to me, that's like out of camp with this mystery injury, right? Like just shows back up and plays. No one knows what it is, right? Nobody has any idea why he was out or what the situation was. But I think to speak to your question about the inconsistency, I start there. I think that's where the solution, and nobody knows the answer to that question, right? But I think that's where the answer can be found, is what's affecting his legs and what seemingly got him not as fleet of foot as he was last year.
Right. And you saw him get cooked multiple times at the blue line on Thursday night. I mean, Sebastian Aho made him look really silly. But then fast forward one night later to Friday, he's making smart decisions with the puck. He's breaking the puck out of his own zone with control pretty easily. He's making that pass to Michael Bunting that not many other defensemen in this league can make. It was a completely 180. And I just want to see the type of performance on Friday night way more often from him, because he has the ability to do it. He just has to stop being so inconsistent. And I understand your point about how poorly the Capitals play. They have been a fun story. I think right now, if you were to rank the teams in the East, they're probably fourth behind Florida, New York, and Carolina, in my opinion. You can maybe make an argument for Tampa Bay, Toronto, but I have Washington fourth right now. But I still think I want to see the Penguins try and repeat that third period against other teams. That should be the blueprint for them going forward. The way they were able to not allow Washington to get a shot for virtually half that period, the way they were able to defend the rest of that period after Evgeny Malkin got that goal. And by the way, what a great goal that was from Malkin. Even better power move from Brian Russ. He's done that move so many times to the front of the net. Really nice seeing him dish it to Malkin there. But I just want that to be the blueprint for other games this season. Again, I understand this team is not very good right now, but if they have any shot of trying to play their way back into this, I guess, race in the Eastern Conference, they need way more third periods like that.
Yeah, and less is more, I think, is the theme, right? Like
they made it boring. That's the thing.
That's great. Yeah, that's what we want. You don't need to score that extra goal, right? When you're in that situation, there's no need to keep pressing and pinching, and trying to, drive offense that's not needed. You could just make it mucky in the neutral zone, or, I thought they did a good job, Hunter, even when they weren't generating shots themselves. They just kept the puck out of their own end, right? I mean, that's the thing to me, is you didn't leave the door open. And if you could just leave the door shut, you don't even have to lock it, just leave it shut. And I think the lack of pinching aids to that, right? You don't have a defenseman constantly out of position. The forwards have to work less hard. And you don't. I don't think they were not trying to be productive offensively, but it wasn't beating a dead horse. I think it was let the game come to you, right? Don't force everything. Let the game come to you and make decisions based off what the other team is giving you. And I thought that we saw a lot of dump-ins. I thought that was great. I thought they played a lot of dead pucks. What's really popular this year, and I don't know if people have picked up on this yet, but have you noticed there are a lot of stretch passes coming out of their own zone, and that's I thought it was good that you saw less of that in that third period, because just all the stuff we've been talking about, like getting killed in transition or pinching, stretch passing is a risky venture, right? I mean, anytime you're throwing a puck that's got to cross two lines to get it to its recipient, there's a ton of things that can go wrong. I mean, hell, the ice could be bad. You don't even have to have another player near. You could just hit an imperfection in the ice and screw it up. So I thought it was much more measured, is the word I'll use, right? And more reserved almost, but not in a stupid way, not in like a selling out way, just in like a, take what the game gives you way. And that's all they have to do. I think that the approach they have some nights where they just want to kick the door down offensively over and over and over again. That's great if you're up 5 and you want to pile on, by all means, go for it. But when it's a 1-2 goal game and momentum, meaning what it does in this game today, you can't keep doing that all night long. You got to bunt sometimes.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me just a little bit of some of the times they would play in 16 and 17, where they would really know how to defend a lead in the third period. That's at least what it looked like on Friday night in Washington. And it was just really nice to see that come back a little bit. But that's going to do it for this first segment. Coming up in the second segment, Jesse and I are going to go over a couple more things from this game, including how Noel Acciari has played these last several games, and of course, the goaltending situation. What is going to happen going forward now that Tristan Jarry is back with the Penguins and they have this 3 goalie rotation going? But before we get to that, we have to tell you all about a a couple of our sponsors. First, it is PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action, and with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. It's the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. It's also the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, so your lineups stay in play. Even if one of your players gets injured, if your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, they keep your lineup alive. It's also the best place to get real money sports action. Just join over 10 million users and sign up today. And you can sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play only $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. One more time, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's PrizePicks. Run your game. And we're not done. I got to tell you all about our last sponsor, and that is Game Time. Game Time filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't even have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. They have priority Game Time picks. Creation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. There's also all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. Seat views get a full view from your seat in the app before you buy, and they have the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Right now, Game Time has a very big exclusive zone deal for the NHL's Winter Classic event at Wrigley Field. Just go to the Game Time app to purchase tickets and get 10% off bleacher seats and 20 to 25% off on home plate seats from Wrigley Field. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, we're back here in this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes, joined for Marshall Monday by Jesse Marshall. So, Jesse, let's start with the big question, and that is the goaltending situation. The Penguins actually just tweeted out that it will be Joel Blomqvist getting the start tonight against the Dallas Stars. I gotta say, I know Blomqvist is their top goalie right now. I was kind of surprised when I read that tweet because they just recalled Jarry. I was kind of thinking, were they maybe just going to give Jarry the start tonight just to see what he can do back in the NHL, considering what he did in the AHL? His numbers were pretty solid. His goals against average was very low. He played fairly well in Wilkes-Barre. So I was kind of thinking, why don't they just give him a start and see what he can do? But I am totally fine with them going to Blomqvist for this game. He has earned this start. He has been their Penguins' top netminder this year. I guess I was just kind of thinking, again, I thought they were going to give this to Jarry, considering that he just came back up. But Jesse, what's your read on the situation right now that Jarry is back up with Ned and Blomqvist?
Yeah, I was surprised that they didn't. I thought that they were going to go right to him. They have this plan they keep referring to, right? That they keep referencing as like their everything that they're doing here is scripted according to them, right? So maybe this is just a part of the secret plan. I think that you want to get him in at home, probably, right? Like, I think that makes the most sense. So that's one of the other things I thought that would get him into the net tonight, was that they're at home, and that's usually a more stable environment, I think, for most nights. But yeah, you said it. I mean, Blomqvist's just been their best guy. He's been their best player in the net. So they need points right now. You can't take this season, put it on pause. If you were, stacking wins and accruing a bunch of points that you didn't expect to get, by all means, give Jarry the night, right? Let him go and take the 2 points and roll the dice. But you can't do that. You have to stack points. Like, if you have any chance of even being around sniffing the playoffs come the holiday season, you got to play the guy that gives you the best chance. I think right now that's Joel Blomqvist, and if he slips up tonight, something bad happens, he lets in a couple softies, by all means, go to Jarry and see what he can do. But I'm not here's the thing, Hunter, just being frank with you, I'm in no rush to get Jarry back into that net.
Fair.
Got to be honest with you. Like, I'm not, I don't know, the problem to me seems so, and maybe you can clip this later and play it on repeat to show how wrong I was. I would hope that's true, because that would be the outcome that's preferable for the Penguins, right? But I don't know that like a 2-week trip down to the American Hockey League fixes the problems that you saw, right? Like that to me is wishful thinking, right? This problem is like much, much bigger than a 2-week solution can provide you. But maybe it at least stops the flooding on the boat. Maybe it gives everybody a stable moment to kind of align themselves and try again. And maybe you get a little bit of a better result out of that, as a result. I don't know. But back to my original point, Blomqvist should be the guy right now. I mean, he's the one that looks the calmest in there, and the one that seems to have most control and command over what's going on. And I think as time has gone on, I've seen him grow deeper and out of his net, and sort of like challenging guys now and getting on top of the crease more, which is great. So keep it rolling. At some point, Jarry is going to have to get back in there, Hunter, but don't rush it.
Yeah, I mean, he was making some great timely saves in that game against Washington. The save on Ovechkin is one prime example. The same on Dylan Strome is also another prime example. He was great in that game. And so, yeah, I'm totally fine with them going back to him. I was just kind of thinking Mike Sullivan, she was like, oh, I want to see what he learned, I guess, from these last 2 weeks, and maybe putting him out there against one of the top teams in the league is a good test run. But on the other hand, I could also see Mike Sullivan, at least by starting Blomqvist in this game, he's maybe going like, okay, maybe I want to see Jarry against one of the worst teams in the league, maybe like a Detroit who's not that good, or like a San Jose this upcoming weekend who's not that good either, to see what he can do. Both of those games are at home for the Penguins. The Penguins play 3 of 4 games at home this week. And actually, you look at the rest of this month, Jesse, they only go on the road twice, and we're already at November 11th. They only go on the road to play once this Friday on November 15th against the Blue Jackets, and then the 29th against the Bruins. Every other game this month is at home. So they'll have an opportunity or two to go to Jarry, especially, later this week against teams that are really not that good, to maybe see what he's learned. So again, I'm good with it, with how Blomqvist is playing. He's NHL ready. He's shown that. And I'm excited to see what he can do against the Dallas Stars tonight. We're going to preview that game coming up here in the final segment. But just to switch gears a little bit, Jesse, how about the play of Noel Acciari this year? Started out a little bit slow, but these last several games, I feel like this is the Noel Acciari that we have been wanting to see for quite a while. Last year, he was pretty banged up, but when he was in the lineup, he really wasn't doing too much. But this year, he's a penalty-killing menace. He's forechecking hard. He's showing his physicality every night, and he's also producing some offense for this team. He got that empty net goal against Washington on Friday, but this is the best I've seen Noel Acciari play as a Penguin, and it's really nice to see after how unfortunate last year was.
Yeah. I mean, I think the barometer on him should be like, how noticeable is he in his role, and how much energy is he bringing to the team? You mentioned all the things, forechecking. I mean, penalty kill is a bonus for me. Even strength minutes, like forechecking, winning loose pucks, getting pucks deep, going in there and knocking a couple guys around to keep it alive while his teammates come to help, getting in front of the net, being a menace there. That's what you expect, right? I mean, that's what you should be getting. And the goals would be nice, I think, given his salary. I mean, I think you'd like to see him pot a few too on top of that. I don't think I don't think that's enough, right, for how much he makes. So I'd love to see, a little bit more on the goal scoring side. The empty netter is great, but at the end of the day, I just feel like that environment is so much more stable, right? You don't feel like in the third period of a game, Mike Sullivan's thinking about ways he can creatively not deploy his fourth line. Which is like, looking back a couple years since the Hextall era, Hunter, is like, really, have they had a useful fourth line? Have they had a line that they feel confident can go out and, not blow the game, or get hemmed in their zone for a full minute and 50 seconds? This feels like, you can attack a little bit with this line. And again, it's not going to score, 20 goals over the next 20 games. It's not going to be white hot by any stretch of the imagination on the score sheet. But you need to stop this team, Hunter, in my opinion. When the bleeding starts, they hemorrhage every single time, right? You look at these blown leads, they have absolutely no way to collect themselves. And if you have a line that's just all energy, right? It's just, you forget about the threat of scoring, forget about all that, just energy, useful checking, can play inside the offensive zone. That's the bandage, right? Like, that's what you need to get the game back underneath you. Because right now what's happening is you let one in, everyone forgets the system, puck watches in the defensive zone, becomes extra passive, and now it's 2-0, 3-0, 4-0, 5-0. Not obviously not that bad, but you get the point I'm trying to make. The goals start to go in all the time, and they blow these leads. They let games slip away in really short margins of time. So Acciari getting the big mention here as a part of this unit, right? But like, that's what you need. You need a team that can go out there and just be a tangible game changer, which is probably something they haven't had since Bluger, Zach Aston Reese, and Brandon Tanev.
I like that comparison because that line really was great at shutting down the opposition in the defensive zone. I know they weren't giving you a lot of offense on most nights, but defensively, their underlyings were always so good. There's a reason why that line was talked about quite often when they were here. But yeah, I mean, going back to another point that you made, I still want to see this team not wilt when they have, a multi-goal lead. It's happened so many times. Heck, it happened even against Washington when they went up 2-0. They allowed Washington to crawl back into that game, even though Washington wasn't playing that well. But once they got the lead in the third period, I was still very surprised they didn't cough that up, because considering that they've done that all season long. But I think that'll do it for this second segment. Coming up to end the show, Jesse and I are going to get you all set for Penguins Stars tonight and how the Penguins can get 2 big points against one of the best teams in the Western Conference. But before we get to that, we got to tell you all about our last sponsor, and that is FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook betting partner of the NFL. All right, we're back here in this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes, joined by Jesse Marshall for Marshall Mondays. And Penguin Stars, Jesse, it comes your way tonight from PPG Paints Arena, one of many home games for the Penguins this month. And this is a Stars team that has been very good to start the season. They are 8-5 through 13 games. They have 16 points. That's good for third in the Central. They're 7 points and a second behind the very red-hot Minnesota Wild and the scorching hot Winnipeg Jets. 14-1 to start the year. That has never happened in NHL history, where a team has won 14 of their first 15 games to start the season. Jesse, that Winnipeg team has been absolutely unreal, but this Stars team, very much still a Stanley Cup contender. I think when you look at their forward group, I think this is the deepest forward group in the league. You have Jason Robertson on your top line with Rupe Hintz, Matt Duchene, the ageless wonder Matt Duchene is on the second line with Tyler Seguin, Jamie Benn and Wyatt Johnson on the third line with Stan Coven, who has been a wrecking ball this year. And then you have Sam Steele, Colin Blackwell on your fourth line. Defensively, Miro Heiskanen, easily a top 10 defenseman in my book in the NHL. You have Esa Lindell, who's a perfectly fine second pairing guy. Thomas Harley, who's on the third pairing, but you can easily put him higher up in the lineup, I think. And then you also have, of course, Jake Ottinger in net, who is a borderline top 10 goalie. This is a team that forechecks very hard. Every line can produce offense. They play well in their own zone. They usually get the goaltending. This is a very tough test for the Penguins. And you look at some of the players that have been really producing for the Stars. Duchene already has 15 points in 13 games. He leads the team in goals. Stan Coven is a point-per-game guy. Tyler Seguin's a point-per-game guy. Rupe Hintz has been great, and he's great in all three zones. He is a treat to watch. Jason Robertson, 4 goals, 7 points in 13 games. I still think he has a bit more to give, and I think he is going to throughout the season, but this is still a team that is very dangerous. So, Jesse, what are your keys for the Penguins to beat a very strong Stars team tonight?
Don't let Jason Robertson and Miro Heiskanen be the ones that figure it out tonight. They haven't been their best up to this point in the season. I think Heiskanen especially kind of well below what you'd expect his pace to be. Hasn't looked the same. I think in his zone entry numbers as well have been a little bit down for me. But they're still super dangerous, right? They're effective between the blue lines. They're tough to beat in the neutral zone. They play extremely well off the counter. And they have got guys up and down their lineup who can just absolutely destroy you along the wall in puck battles. They're very aggressive along the boards. They tack from outside to inside a lot, walk a lot of pucks through the circle into high danger scoring areas, both at even strength and on the power play. So good shooters throughout. That's the thing. You look up and down the lineup, every single line's got a guy on it who can rip one in from anywhere. And when you combine that with some of the big bodies they have that can roll around and be physical, like look at Mason Marchment and the role that he plays on that line. That's what he's the Chris Kunitz out there, that's out there to create space and bang guys around and, get the shooters open. So you're right. I mean, I think they're a good team. I still think they're a favorite in the West. They're this good. And I don't think Robertson and Heiskanen have played particularly like up to their level, which is terrifying to consider, right? Like if their two best players haven't like necessarily gotten into the full stride of it yet, that's, you just don't want to be the team that opens the door for them, right? And again, not that they're playing poorly. I think just the points haven't come for either one of them in the way that you might want them to up to this point. And you know that breakout performance is coming, right? So just don't be the team that gets doormatted by one of those two and starts their unbelievable run of form.
No, I mean, Heiskanen hasn't even scored yet this season. He only has 4 points in 13 games.
Yeah.
We all know that's not going to last, but you're right. You don't want it to really start tonight. And this is going to be a pretty interesting litmus test for how the Penguins play in their own zone. You can't keep doing what you've been doing in your defensive zone all year against a Stars team that has this much firepower. You try turning this game into a track meet, you're going to lose 6-1, 6-0, 7-0, something like that. That's how the Stars play, and they have the talent to make you pay.
And they just got dog walked by Winnipeg. So you would imagine that they're not going to, if you go back, I think what was about a week and a half ago, Hunter, they got lost 2 to Florida. They had a home and home with the Panthers, lost both. I know they may have dropped another game in between that. They're win one, lose one, win one, lose one right now. And I think that Winnipeg performance was, that Winnipeg crowd was on their goalie hard, and kind of like getting a little, USA Canada rivalry thing going with some of their chants at him. So I don't imagine, Hunter, that Dallas is going to be, coming out on a flat foot tonight. I think they're a pretty good road team, and I expect them to come out throwing a few punches, given the way that last one ended. So you can't get, you've mentioned it 15 times on the show already. Consistency, like this is where it has to start for the Penguins. It has to start here, defending your home ice against a team that just got, beat up by a really good squad. This is, you win this one, maybe you start to make some believers out of people that maybe there's a little bit more to this.
Yeah, and later this week, you have games against the Blue Jackets, who really aren't that good this year, and against the Sharks, who we also know are pretty bad. They did just shut out the Devils, though, this weekend. Mackenzie Blackwood had his nice revenge game on the Devils, but it's still going to be a fun game.
Here's the thing, though, Hunter, not to cut you off, but like the Sharks game terrifies me a little bit because the players on that roster, if you're irresponsibly pinching and like giving them opportunities, they're going to dunk on you. Like Jake Wallman, assuming he's back by then, will be doing the gritty all over again, just for a different team this time. Like we talk about this less is more approach that they had in the last game. Like that's got to be it. Like you should beat a team like the Sharks on paper, right? That should be a team you beat. You lose those games when you take those unnecessary risks. And, while the sum of the parts might not be great, some of the parts are really good. And you have to the Sharks are a team now you have to start like taking a little bit seriously just because of, and we haven't seen a ton of Macklin Celebrini, obviously, because he was hurt, but you got to start taking them at least, somewhat seriously.
Right. And just real quick to end the show, Jesse, are you a believer in the Winnipeg Jets this year?
Yeah, I am. It starts with the goaltending. I've always I thought they would have been better last year too. Their goaltending is not going to regress, right? Like let's start there. Like Connor Hellebuck is good and he's a regression immune goalie. So he may slip for a couple games, but like what you're seeing is what you're going to get. They have 4 good lines, right? Josh Morrissey last year turned into a superstar and got hurt. And people forgot about him because he was out for a little bit. What he's reminding everybody that he's picked up right where he left off before he got hurt, and he should be a household name among defensemen in analysis of this league. And I don't know if it's like he's not 6'5" again, and we're going to do this like semi-small defenseman jargon with him. But at the end of the day, like he's earned it. I mean, he's a point generating machine. And they've got some really good shooters, right? Like look up and down the lineup, guys that you assume are these like grind it out, get it deep, and beat you on deflections, are scoring like snipes, right? And maybe that goes away, but then you end up with guys who can get to gritty areas and score on deflections. So it doesn't really go away. I think they need to add, they don't have a superstar, right? Like that's the one criticism that you could make of them is like when the going gets tough and the well dries up a little bit, who's going to lift them up by the seat of their pants and drag them across the line? But they go out and get somebody like that and they become a big buyer at the deadline, Hunter. Like, what does that team look like? And there's I hate bringing this up because like it's both true and it's also something people don't want to talk about, but like destination, right? Like that is a hard draw to get someone to come and live in Winnipeg and play there for a long period of time. And like, I know we're laughing about it, but it's true, right? It's just true. It's really difficult for them to market themselves as anything other than this small group, this small city that's got these diehards in it, right? But like, look at the record now. And you look around the league and maybe there's some Verkempt stars on some other teams who want to get out of where they're at and they're still going to start beating on the door for a trade. We always have these names come up around the deadline, Connor, that are Connor. I'm thinking about somebody on the Connor, Hunter, that like are the guys are going to move, the big names that are going to go. They're on the whiteboard for everybody. Maybe Winnipeg's not such a dissuaded position for them anymore. Maybe they're more willing to take a trip up there, and whether it's on a rental or a short-term deal, if they're going to be winning 14 out of 15 games, I don't think anybody's going to care about the weather. So I mean, I think they're making themselves more marketable in this process.
Well, or their airport, right? But Kyle Connor's been great. Ehlers has been awesome.
He's been great.
Yes,
like Renaissance level good, and not to say he's been bad the last couple years, right? But like we just said, they don't have a star. Maybe it's him.
Maybe. But I can definitely see them being aggressive at the deadline to him. Morrissey, he's, to me, borderline top 10 defenseman in the league right now. You can certainly put him in there. And Hellebuck, he's
disgusting. Arguably
the best goaltender on the planet, right up there with Igor Shesterkin.
It's like having two humans in the net.
Yes, legitimately. He's been that good for so long. But I think that'll do it for today's episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. Jesse, you teased something that's coming up in The Athletic this week. What is it?
I'm not going to tell you what it is because I might jinx. It's contingent on something happening, right? So we're going to release it one way or another. But I'll tell you this. It's about Sidney Crosby, and it's got over 20 minutes of video in it.
Contingent on something happening. I wonder what that something is.
We don't traditionally look at Crosby in this vein, I don't think, right? And I think I'm trying to take a different approach at like viewing his historical career, because he's not going to go. Let's just be honest, he's not going to go down as one of the best goal scorers of all time, right? But he probably should go down as one of the most creative, and I think that's what I wanted to focus on. So if you are a sicko and you love hockey and you want to watch over 20 minutes of video, come by and check it out. Also for McKean's, I'm going to talk about Nico Hischier and why he's scoring so much.
He's been great. The Devils have been fun to watch, and I think they have another level to reach. I think that team can be a contender this year, in my opinion. But
got to clean it up defensively, but yes,
I agree. But again, I think that will do it for today's episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. Thank you all so much for tuning in / watching on YouTube. Pat will return from his vacation on Tuesday for the show, and hopefully he won't be too hungover from this trip. And that's no. And then Jesse, he'll be back next week for Marshall Mondays and throughout the season as well. So for Jesse, I am Hunter Hodes. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and Pat and I will talk to you on Tuesday.